Hey guys, welcome. I'm Catherine and this is Little Bits of Heaven Homestead. Today I'm moving my chicks from my incubator into my brooder, and I wanted to show you what tools you'll need to set up your at-home brooder. So can you believe it's already been 21 days since I set these eggs, and I meant to show you candling and time just kind of flies. So I have more eggs collected. I will be resetting, so I'm going to try and show you in the next 7 days what candling an egg and growth looks like inside. But because time flies, I've already got chicks. So in order to set up a brooder, there's really only a few things that you're going to need. You're going to need to control heat, because they have been in an environment for the last 21 days. In order to develop, they needed 99.5 degrees. You're going to want to keep them at that same or relatively close temperature for about the next week, and then slowly stair step them into a cooler environment until you can transition them, ideally outside. I usually transition in the next 3 to 4 weeks. The rule of thumb and the expert advice, oh sorry guys, did that scare you? Expert advice is to wait until they're fully feathered. So I'm always kind of a rebel and living a little counterintuitive to the normal rules. So here is my heat source. It is a radiant heat plate. It is warm to the touch, but not hot. Your chicks can come in direct contact with it. They can sit on top. It's not an issue. It's also not a concern for fire. That is specifically why I chose to go this route, because if you know anything about heat lamps, they are a huge concern as far as potentially starting a fire. Not only do you want to make sure if you do use a heat lamp that they are extremely secure, because if they fall into, you usually use some sort of pine shavings. I don't know if you guys can see in here. Let's see. Okay, so I've got about 3 inches of pine shavings, highly combustible. But also the chicks, as they get into the shavings and they do their chick thing, they're going to kick and they stir up a lot of dust, which coats everything, including your heat lamp. So if you have any opportunity to pick up a radiant plate, highly recommend going this route over a heat lamp. I only have one in here to control the ambient air temperature. If I am hatching over the winter, I do not utilize it as a heat source. If it's warm enough in here, and if my heat plate is enough to keep my chicks warm. So in fact, this thing is so safe, I have forgot to unplug it and not had chicks in my brooder for several months, come back, realize that my heat plate was still on. No fire risk. So highly recommend. Okay, you're going to need a food source. They offer either chick starter. Oftentimes you can find them medicated. I prefer to not medicate as a blanket. If I have any issues, I'm not opposed to medicating. I would just prefer to treat individual animals over doing blanket medication. If you do have some things like cocci as an issue in your area, you may choose to go with medicated. Totally up to you. I'm not going to recommend one way or another, just telling you what I do. But I actually go with chick grower. It's the next step up. So they have different levels of chick feed, so chick starter, chick grower, and then you can go into like an all flock, or I usually use an egg layer. So they have these little chicken feed and water things, but I'm notorious for breaking or losing things, so I lost the bottom of my chick feeder, but I do have the water. I like to set it in something to keep it elevated off the shavings, because like I said, chicks will go around kicking, and this way, whoop, I'm spilling. So if they kick their shavings, they're not, this keeps your water source cleaner, because if they have this sitting directly on the shavings, they're going to fill it up with shavings in a matter of minutes, and then they've got no water source. So I do like to keep something to keep it elevated, just to keep it cleaner. So let's see if I can put this in without it spilling. Okay, and their food. And then, because I am a mom, and this is my 5th year hatching eggs from an incubator, and I've seen them utilize this, I put in some sort of stuffed animal. That might be for my own peace of mind, and because, like I said, I am a mom, but I find them oftentimes, sometimes I'll come in and think I lost all my chicks, but all of them are tucked in underneath, hiding underneath this, like they would their broody mom hen. Sometimes they'll pile on top of it. So it just makes me feel good. So I always drop a stuffed animal in the brooder. Do what you wish. Okay, so that is everything that I put inside my brooder. You can monitor your chicks' behavior and determine whether they're too warm or too cold. So what they'll do is if they're too cold, they're going to pile on top of one another. You're going to see them just like a mass of chicks. That's you definitely don't want that, because as they pile on top of one another, they can actually crush and kill the chicks underneath them. So and then on the alternative, if they're too hot, and specifically if you're using like a heat lamp, you'll see if they're too cold, they're going to pile up underneath the heat lamp. If they're too hot, they're going to be as far away from your heat source as possible. They may even be laying out, looking really stretched out little chick pancakes, real flat. That's an indication that they are possibly getting a little too warm. So do keep an eye on their behavior just to determine how they're doing temperature-wise. They can be deceiving too, because when they sleep, they look like little dead chick pancakes. So just kind of keep an eye. As you get further into chick raising, you'll determine what's normal and what's not normal. So before you move them from your incubator into your brooder, what I do is I do a quick dip of their beak into some water. And what that does is it just kind of lets them know that they need to drink, and teaches them how real quick. They pick up on eating really easily. So that's not something you have to teach them. And I don't even know that you necessarily need to teach them how to drink, but that's what my chick mentor taught me how to do, and I've had good success with it. And they definitely, as they come out, seem a little thirsty. So I'm not sure that I mentioned this before, but when your chicks hatch in your incubator, you want to leave them in there for up to 72 hours. You definitely don't want to reach in and grab them as soon as they hatch, because depending on how many eggs you have in here, you may actually prevent your other eggs from being able to hatch. The humidity and temperature is so critical right as soon as they are coming out of their eggs. And if you open up your incubator, you drastically alter the temperature and humidity, but it's specifically the humidity, because they've got this inner membrane inside the egg, and it'll actually turn to like a thick paper wrap around them. They call it shrink wrapping. And so it can actually prevent them from actually being able to hatch. So if you can exercise patience, I cannot stress that enough. Exercise patience. Keep your mitts off your chicks. Let them do their thing. They've got up to 72 hours to be in here, because they are still running off of fuel from their yolk. They don't need access to food and water initially. So if you can give them, and they'll pick at their eggs, and so they're okay in here. Don't stress about it. You definitely don't want to reach in and grab them while they're still wet. After they hatch, they're going to be really slick, and so you want to let them fully dry off and become full fluff balls. And I'll show you here in a second. They are so fluffy. Come here, little guy. So, excuse me. Look. Adorable. These guys, he's Easter egger mix. I've just got backyard flock, and they look like little penguins to me. These are my favorite. So what you do as far as teaching them how to drink, it's hotter than heck in here, guys. So just to dip there, let's see if I can do this. Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but whoop, do it again. Just a little dip. You don't want to force them in. Just a little dip, and see? Yeah. That's all it takes, and now he knows that he wants and likes water. And so I will take him and set him in. There you go. Right underneath the heat source there. And so I'm going to do that same process. I've got a total of 10 chicks that hatched. I'll dip each of their beaks and then put them into the brooder. And then I do have a piece of chicken wire that I'll lay across the top, only because chicks start to have the ability to fly ridiculously early. Like, they can start flying out of this thing and escaping before they're a week old. And so I just keep a piece of chicken wire that I lay over the top. If I'm hatching ducklings, that's less of an issue because they don't fly. So I did want to show you, I've seen a lot of people use these for brooders. Definitely an option if you have just a couple of chicks. They're going to outgrow this relatively quick. So this is not something that I would recommend, and I definitely wouldn't recommend brooding inside your house because they are such a mess. So, okay, just wanted to throw at you my process as far as moving chicks from an incubator into a brooder. Wanted to show you my setup, wanted to show you what few tools that you need in order to have a healthy, happy backyard flock yourself. I hope this was of some help. If you gleaned anything of value out of this, if you could please like this video. And if you have not yet already subscribed, I would appreciate it if you do so. And if you feel so inclined to share, I sure would appreciate it. So thanks for joining me, guys, and until next time, bye.